Dr. Harold W. Sunoo lecture on world peace. We're so excited to add this lecture to our lecture series that will make a nice complement to the Gaddis and the Fleer lectures. We're so thankful that Professor Sunoo and his sons, Cook and Jan, that you will meet in a moment. We're so thoughtful to set up this lecture series for us. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started, and this is very, very important, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Make sure students, members of the community, faculty, staff, trustees, make sure that you silence your cell phones. 2 reasons. 1, actually turn them completely off. 2 reasons. 1, it's rude to the speakers if your phone goes off. And 2, I'm recording the Royals game and I don't want anybody to tell me what the score is. More of the latter than the former. The Sunoo lecture series is designed to help us develop a better understanding of world peace, social justice. It's also designed to honor one of Central's greatest legacies on our faculty, Dr. Harold Sunoo. I was fortunate enough to meet Harold one time. I started in 2013. And on my first week, I go out to the West Coast and I get to see Harold. At that time, I think Harold was 95, if I remember. At 95, Harold was the most popular speaker in this residential complex where he lived. He would lecture for 40 minutes without notes on current events. I asked Harold what his favorite course was to teach at Central. He said the history of political thought. Never had such a course. I asked him what that course entailed. The next 15 minutes, I was just in awe as he laid out chronologically, step by step, the development of political thought in our society. My first thought when I met Harold was, man, when I'm 95, I hope I'm still that sharp. About 5 minutes later, I thought, man, I wish I was that sharp now. An amazing fellow. I've been blessed to spend a couple of days with his sons. Jan will be introduced in a moment as the inaugural lecturer for this series. And right now, I would like to introduce to you Cook Sunoo.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's really good to be home. I'm a graduate of Central Methodist College, 1967. It's a whole lot of years ago, but it feels like yesterday in some ways. It's a thrill to be here, it really is. And when I look out and I see the students here, and it's really nice because I can kind of imagine what I was like 45 years ago when I was sitting out there listening to guest speakers coming in, honored alumni, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes it was kind of a drag. I won't lie. Sometimes it was terrible. And so sometimes they were kind of interesting. So we hope tonight that in this inaugural World Peace Lectures that it will be somewhat tolerable and hopefully not a terrible drag. But we'll try to keep it up a little bit. I want to tell you just a little bit about my father because, after all, it's the Harold W. Sunoo World Peace Lecture Series. My dad was a refugee to the United States in the 30s. He came from Korea. We're Korean by ethnic background, and at that time, Korea was a colony, a very ill-treated colony of Japan. And my father didn't like that. And as a young man, he was protesting that pretty vehemently. And his family felt, they knew, that he was in physical danger if he stayed in that country as a colony and agitated against the imperialist Japanese. So So he was sent by his mother to the United States as a refugee. He was a political refugee to the United States. I want to put that in a little bit of context and do a little bit of a tangent here, just so that we can understand something. That today in the United States and the world, we're dealing with political refugees. And if you think particularly of Syria for the moment, and you think that the United States has made a commitment to accept 10,000 refugees into the country, it's a small number. It's a small number when countries like Denmark are accepting 100,000 in. And we as Americans are accepting 10,000. But please, let's not try to think of it as a burden that we have to bear. But think of it as a gift to us and a potential of enlightening our own country and expanding our own horizons. My father was a refugee. When he came to the United States, from the beginning, he started working. He worked as a houseboy. It was the only kind of job that he could get. He did the laundry. He learned to clean bathrooms. He was a houseboy in a fairly wealthy family in Southern California area. While a houseboy, he earned his college degree, went on to earn his master's and then his PhD. He was a frugal man. He was a steadfast man. He had certain ideas and ideals and he pursued them throughout his life. And he was very adaptable. He was invited to come to Central Methodist College at that time as a teaching job. Now we were in San Francisco at that point. I was in high school, just graduating high school. And I got to tell you that people generally in California and San Francisco don't know a whole lot about Missouri. Well, my mother and my brother didn't really trust my father's judgment when he came to Central Methodist and then came home and he said, you know, I had this interview at Central Methodist, and you know what? It's a wonderful place. And my mother and brother just weren't sure. And my father said, no, it's a beautiful, wonderful place. I'm going there. I'm bringing Cookie, as I was known by Cookie at that time. I'm taking Cookie and we're going to Central Methodist. And my mom and my brother said, go ahead. You go ahead. See what it's like. A year later they came because the stories we took home to San Francisco about how wonderful things were here in the Midwest. And my brother joined me here at Central Methodist. We pledged one of the fraternities. He eventually went on to the other university 30 miles down the road, graduated over there. We won't hold it against him. And that was the beginning of our Missouri experience. Fast forward, my father had told us growing up, and this is a life lesson, is that, you know, institutions are not self-sustaining. They don't just magically continue on. You got to support them. If you have an affiliation, you have a responsibility. If you are a student here, you're paying your tuition, and that's a big responsibility. But know that that tuition is not covering the bill. It's through the donations of others. It's from the alumni that remember their alma mater. It's through foundations. It's through government grants that institutions are supported. So that was one of my dad's lessons. He said, you know, if Red Cross that you love, if it's the Boy and Girls Club, if it's the Boy Scouts, whatever the institution might be, support that institution, because no institution can survive without that kind of support. So my father supported Central Methodist. He supported it every year with an annual scholarship. And then as he was getting older, he said, and this is, his thinking had always been global and far-reaching. And what he said was, you know, I'm going to die in a few years, and I'm not going to be able to write that annual check. I think we should do something that will add to the legacy of the Central Methodist University that will continue on. Now, this wasn't totally altruistic, because he also wanted to perpetuate his own philosophy, political philosophy, world philosophy. And so he required, and when we set this up, required that the lecture be set up with an endowment to the university. And what that means is that there is a basic sum of money endowed to the university. The university cannot spend that money as it wishes. It can only spend the earnings of that money every year, and the earnings from that money shall be used for the Harold W. Sunoo World Peace Lecture. Now, if you think about that, what it's saying is that not just 1 year at a time a scholarship that's going to help a student, young men and women, but somebody would have gotten a scholarship, but not anymore. Instead, this year, next year, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, people will be sitting in a lecture hall listening to the Harold W. Sunoo World Peace Lecture Series. So in that way, his contribution to lifelong perpetual learning is in a minute, is the lectureship that we're initiating tonight. I'm his son, I'm the next generation. That's my granddaughter, the one in pink. And my daughter, in black, and my son, Grant, why don't you stand up a second here? And Grant here is my son, or Dr. Sunoo's grandson. And we're here to kick this thing off, and we're very excited and enthusiastic. My father passed away this spring, and before he passed away, he was a little bit concerned about, well, okay, so now that this lectureship is set up, what's going to happen? And we said, well, Dad, and I'm sorry if this is arcane, but when you set up an endowment, it means that the earnings of that money can be used for the purpose of that endowment. When you set up an endowment in 2015, there's no earnings in 2015. Well, so we did the next best thing. We said, well, what can we get for free? Dad was a very practical man. And what we got for free is a real treat. Now, I don't know why he acquiesced to letting me introduce him, because he's my brother. But he entrusted me to that little task.
Last time.
Now, I'll say good things. One of the things that we had the good fortune of being in Fayette for the last couple of days and reminiscing. And we said one of the really nice things that happened to us when we were Central students was we found the loves of our lives. We found the loves of our lives in some of the co-eds that were here. And I think he more than I, because he found the loves of his life 2 or 3 times during the year that he was here. And unfortunately, none of them turned out to be his spouse. And his spouse is not here with us tonight, so we can talk about the but I do have to fly home with him, so we won't get into that. But seriously, the reason that Jan is really an excellent choice to be the first speaker in the World Plus series is that Jan has a lifetime of international experience, the last dozen of which were spent working for the United Nations International Labor Organization in Asia. And in that capacity was teaching mediation, cross-cultural, cross-economic levels, but essentially and with internationally between different countries. So really practicing, teaching the art of making peace. Now, I'm not going to get into it any further than that because that's what he's going to be talking about. But it is my honor to be able to introduce my brother, Jan Jung-min.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
And it is a pleasure to be here. It just feels so warm and fuzzy. And we've just had so many great encounters. President Woodward hired my father. I talked to his daughter-in-law and son this evening. They introduced themselves to me. My father hired some of the professors here. They approached me also, and it's we've had such a great and warm reception at the president and from the one of Dad's favorite students, Tad Perry, who's the chairman of the board here at Central. So it's just been, like I said, a kind of a warm and fuzzy couple of days for us here. And to cap it off, all of you were willing to venture out into this cold and rainy night and come down here and listen to us do our presentation. And that just really appreciate it. I really appreciate that. Students have a lot of things on their mind, a lot of things to do. Community members, a couple of folks I met from the Rotary came all the way from St. Louis. That goes really appreciated. I want you to know that it was very, I respect you all and appreciate you for coming. I'm not going to talk about former girlfriends or anything here because this is being recorded, Cookie. But I'll give you a spoiler about this little talk today. It is my intention to stimulate all of you, students, faculty, esteemed Fayette community members, retirees, to stimulate you to invest yourselves in international or domestic peace building. Global peace, opportunity, or impossibility. At the start of the school year, President Drake gave a kickoff speech to the faculty and staff here at Central. And one of his memorable points was, that stuck with me, was his concern about whether Central was doing enough to promote not just academics, but ethical leadership and social responsibility. These are part of CMU's core values and it's in their mission statement. So it's a college, but it's a college with a heart, and we say that often. So what are we doing to support and build within the community that we send out, and the students that we send out to the world after their 4 years, What are we doing to build their ethical leadership and social responsibilities? It's a Christian college. So this has a lot of meaning to many of us when we look at the current behavior of our financial and political leaders in this country. And I'm referring to the unscrupulous real estate bank lending practices of recent years that led to so many Americans losing their homes during the home loan debacle. I'm talking about the 2008 financial crisis caused by reckless and unchecked Wall Street speculation, and even going back to 2001, the Enron case, which cost thousands of ordinary people their pensions and their life savings. Then I think about hope for social responsibility and ethical leadership in Congress, our leaders and our political leaders, and who have been hopelessly gridlocked in partisan politics with our representatives refusing to listen to each other or to cooperate. And the public good, it seems to many of us, is being sacrificed for the benefit of the few. And when you look at trying to get information, we're trying to get information from our news sources. You look at even Fox or CNN, we're really not getting enough information because TV news today is really turned into kind of an entertainment channel. And people are just trying to make the news more spicy, more interesting, and to get the highest ratings and the greatest profits. But despite these discouraging conditions, I think you college students are really the fortunate ones. You're able to study away from home, and you have the opportunity in these next few years to gain a much broader perspective of the world. And I think whatever precious insights you gain through your own critical thinking, through the insights from your professors, I believe those will stay with you throughout your adult and your working life. So is global peace an opportunity or an impossibility? Well, for millions of people working for peace in thousands of different ways around the world, it's really not a choice. It's an imperative, and it's a commitment reflecting and understanding what needs to be done. And who are these peacemakers that I'm talking about? And what is their underlying core belief? If you boil it down, I think that the common denominator is that they're a bunch of optimists. And I think the core belief is it is a person who believes that the human spirit is basically good, and that given the right opportunity, people want to do the right thing, and they will do the right thing. So I think many of us believe that. You can be Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, you can be any kind of a mediator, and you would have to have that kind of a belief to think that it's worthwhile living. In order to have a kid, you have to have that kind of a belief, to believe that you want to perpetuate the human race. For the past 9 years, I've been part of a faculty that teaches peacemaking skills. I teach it to mid-career professionals from around the world whose work includes various types of conflict. The program is called the Rotary Peace Center, and it's at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand, in Bangkok. It's about 25 Rotary Peace Fellows. They're all involved in resolving some type of conflict in their professional lives. And they're all supported by the Rotary International. My students have included an Army general from Sri Lanka who's trying to find a better way of resolving political and armed conflict between the government of Sri Lanka, which is near India, and the rebel Tamil Tigers. Other students are police officers who are community police officers working in multi-ethnic and immigrant communities in Portland, Oregon, in Philadelphia, PA, and also from places as far away as Southwest Australia, Thailand, South India, all police officers who are trying to figure out a better way to communicate with the communities they're working in and to resolve problems without having to pull out their gun. Other participants in this wonderful program include a Muslim cleric, a Muslim imam, and a Christian preacher, both from Nigeria, where they're in life and death struggles with each other, often in the villages. I had a director of a mediation program in Palestine who spent 10 years in an Israeli prison. a highly placed UN official working in conflict zones in the Balkans. I had an African nun working as a social worker in refugee camps in the Congo, a Filipino social worker working in the slums of Manila, and the list goes on and on. But regardless of the uniforms they wear or the badges that they carry, they all see themselves as peacemakers, searching for a more effective way to communicate, for a better way to facilitate dialogue between partners in conflict and to mediate conflict constructively, so all sides are empowered to find lasting solutions to entrenched and often life-threatening conflicts. Here's a picture of just one of the classes. I teach this class twice a year, and they get together for like 9 weeks, and they get international instructors coming from all around the world to teach them. They get taught about conflict theory, women's issues, how to use the media to promote peace, how to fashion models of sustainable peace. And in this 9-week period, I get 1 week to teach them very specific skills about how to deal with conflict. So I'm teaching them mediation techniques, I'm teaching them negotiation, interest-based negotiation techniques, facilitation techniques, how to get large groups of people to communicate with each other in a constructive way and to learn something from each other. And I teach them cross-cultural conflict resolution skills and cross-cultural competencies. They take these skills back to their work and they use them to help diverse communities communicate constructively with each other. It's a wonderful program. And I feel like my professional life has really prepared me for this challenge and led me here. And I love it because it taps into my professional skill set as well as my ethical value system. And it puts my experience, my skills, where I feel there's some need in the world. What all these peacemakers have in common all over the world, I think, is several things. One is they have, all of them have somehow identified a gift that they have. They've discovered where their talents are. They've discovered that. The second thing they know is they've been able to identify what their passion is. What is their passion in life? What is the things they care most about? And they've been able to kind of put them together. So, but we don't have to go around the world to find peacemakers. I think that many of you sitting in this room are peacemakers. You might be a teacher or a professor challenging your students to think critically. You might be a businessman supporting the Rotary to eradicate polio around the world. You might be a farmer involved with the Heifer Project to bring food to underdeveloped countries. You might be a student circulating a petition for a greener world. So all of us know about that. And I believe that each of you has a gift to share with this world to make it a better place. And some of you are aware of what that gift is, others not yet. But here at Central, you're all traveling a road to figure out where your talents, where your passions can take you after graduation. Many of you are thinking not only where your talents and passion will lead you to a paycheck, but also where they will link up with the needs of the world. And this is social responsibility. And this is ethical leadership. I can assure you that after 45 years of working life, linking your gift to your work and your work to the world is the best way you'll find happiness, and it's the best way that you'll excel at your job. So in order for your work not to be drudgery and not to be a drag, you've got to find personal meaning in it. So don't go for the first job you can get just because it pays the highest rate. Go for the job that you think you'll love. Go for the job that's going to make you happy. Go for the job that has meaning for you. That won't be a job, it'll be a calling. This is so important, especially because jobs are hard to find. But if you follow your passion, the money will follow. And I think we often find our gifts and our life paths in small ways and by exploring situations that are very local. I want to talk about Ferguson, Missouri for a minute. do you think the situation in Ferguson might have ended up differently if the requirement for graduation from the police academy had been that all white police cadets had to spend a year living with a black family, and all black cadets had to live with a white family? How would that daily close human contact, that investment in each other's lives, have changed how each viewed the other? And how would that have affected all the small and large decisions that led to the obvious social disconnect that led to the confrontations that we have seen this last year? It's all about human contact. It's all about knowing the other. It's all about being invested in the other. Now, I don't have to guess to answer that question, because I've lived through a similar experience over 50 years ago. When I was 17, I went to an MYF conference in San Mateo to hear a girl talk about her experience as an exchange student. She had been in the International Christian Youth Exchange Program, ICYE. I'm wearing their button. Little did I realize what a life-changing event that was going to be for me. That night, something about her experience just spoke to me. I was in my last year of high school in San Francisco and had spent 4 years taking German. Now, one of the incentives for me to study German were these really cute German girls who were in my class, Nina and Susie Bantowski. And, you know, I was kind of a nerd, you know, when I was in high school, and they were from Germany, and they didn't know the difference, so we became friends. And I don't know how we talk about girlfriends so much tonight, but we became good friends. We talked and went back and forth to school about, like teenagers do, about everything. So I had a really good impression of Germany, even while I was taking that class, and an incentive to stay in class. So when they heard this opportunity about being an exchange student, going to Germany, living for a year with a family, and really getting my German good, I thought, wow, that's great. But the other thing that drove me at the time, I was kind of a very young, idealistic Christian young fellow. I thought, well, maybe I can play a small part to heal the wounds of World War II through sort of this people-to-people contact. It was just a very naive, very simple idea. But you have to remember, in 1962, that was the height of the Cold War between the U.S. and the USSR. And it was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Communist East Germany was building the Berlin Wall with bricks and barbed wire right through the middle of Berlin. They were shooting people who were trying to escape, so it was really kind of a tough time. But 6 months later, I found myself getting off a train in a tiny little village in North Germany called Heiligenstätten by Itzehoe. And I was ready to spend a year with this complete stranger family, which turned out to be a pastor's family with 12 kids. 12 children. I was met at the station by this really pretty 21-year-old German girl named Almut. That was my German sister, and that's her when she was 21. And my 10-year-old host brother, Chardo, this cute little redhead over here. This is us, you know, this, talk about culture shock. I'm coming from San Francisco. I'm going to a village where you have to fetch milk in a pail from a farm. And they both look typecast straight out of Sound of Music. And, man, look at them. So Chardo grabbed my suitcase and he threw it on the back of his bicycle and he rode off to the home, and then Almut just grabbed my suitcase with me. We both carried it hand in hand and walked from the train station to our house, which is only about 3 blocks away. And as soon as I get to this place, my German host mother, who was also very friendly, greeted me with a friendly, "Hallo Janni, willkommen, wir freuen sich, dich kennenzulernen." I didn't understand it either, even with 4 years of German. But what it means was, "Hi Jenny, welcome to our new house, we're all excited to meet you." Well, all these 12 kids, they range in age from 8 to 27. 12 children. And immediately, my upbringing as a Korean-American city boy from a small family came into conflict with this complicated dynamic of such a large family, trying to understand the many changes they were going through. With so many kids and so many different interests, it was just natural there were going to be a lot of conflicts. rivalries. And the older brothers were constantly fighting amongst themselves about who got to use the family car, you know, to take your girlfriends out on the weekends. They had a younger, impatient teenage daughter, you know, who wanted to get liberated, and she would end up in screaming matches with her parents over the dinner table. And they were just, I was just shocked. I mean, this was so unlike, you know, Dr. Harold Sunoo and Sonia and my house, where it's a very, you know, we never screamed at the table, you know, we were always polite, we always said yes to dad, you know, and we were a very polite Korean Asian family. So this constant fighting and aggressive behavior both intimidated and confused me. And, you know, I tried to stay calm and not show anger, lose faith, but I was surrounded by all these dynamics, and it kind of forced me to realize that other people have different other ways of communicating, of resolving conflict, and very different from Cookie and my very quiet Korean family. So my host brothers and sisters, they could sense my dismay, and they would often take me aside and try to explain and say, hey, don't be upset, this is just normal behavior in a big family, you know, this is normal, don't worry about it. But I always try to, you know, talk to each other and try to get the brothers and sisters to calm down and listen to each other. You know, just my style and my need, actually, because I don't like conflict. But I think when I look back on it, that the seeds of my interest and commitment to cross-cultural mediation were kind of being sown in that family environment. And they tell me, yeah, we taught you all about mediation. I said, yeah, you gave me a great laugh, you know. But actually, it was funny, because even at 17 years old, 18 years old, after a while, my German mother started trusting me and saying, you know, Jan, can you please talk to Etta, because, you know, she won't listen to me, but, you know, she'll listen to you. And I kind of started getting into that role, you know. And I guess in every family, there's one child who kind of plays that role of being the peacemaker and the go-between. But it wasn't easy to understand how all these things played out. And I'll give an example. One evening after dinner, one of my German brothers, Edzard, who was my age, he was also about 18, we came into the kitchen after dinner to look for a snack, and there were two lemons. They were just sitting on the table like this. So Edzard grabs both of them, and he put one on top of a cabinet that I couldn't reach. And I go, hey, there's two lemons, there's two of us. We should both get a lemon because we want to make lemonade. I said, that's a fair thing to do. And Edzard said, what? Maybe where you come from, you only got one brother. You know, you can share and share alike. I've got 12 brothers and sisters. I got to look out for myself. So, you know, I was stunned by that. You know, it just seemed so selfish and unfair. So at the end, after a while, so he said, if you want the other lemon, I will grant it to you. So I said, well, that's not nice, you know. It's two lemons. The fair thing to do is give me, I take one, you take one, we share and share alike. So we had a little argument about it, but eventually we both had lemonade. And I think we both kind of learned something out of that. And I learned that I just can't impose my own value system, my own right and wrong ideas on another family or on another culture or on other people. Sometimes they have their own way of thinking that is very legitimate to them. So that was really a good lesson for me, I have to say. And actually, we both learned a lesson, and it was a lesson in mediation and cultural diversity. And I think that encounter gave Edzard something to think about as well. And we had a lot of encounters like that during this year. As we kind of explored things and as we kind of compared. And we both got a little more thoughtful and a little more broad-minded during the course of the year in our personal global exchange. And actually, we both coincidentally ended up at choosing as our first career counseling psychology. So, well, it's been 52 years since I left my host family. We've stayed in constant contact and grown closer over the years. We've shared many joys, many sorrows, as any family does. We have even brought our expanded families together regularly to ensure that our children and our children's children would also build relationships with each other. Every 2 or 3 years, someone organizes a family reunion, and the numbers have really grown exponentially from 12 kids to a family reunion with 120. Believe it or not, I know about 90% of the names of all these kids. And my wife does too, you know. So we've had this relationship with them over 50 years. And it's very close. The original picture of me arriving in Heiligenstadt with our families, to see our family, in 50 years later, all the brothers and sisters are still alive, thank goodness. My oldest sister, Hauke, she just turned 80 last month, and we all went back there. We had a little mini family reunion, a birthday party for her. She was the first to reach 80, and everybody showed up. About 45 immediate family members in that small reunion. And we spent a sunny weekend just kind of connecting, having a great time. And they've been my second family after the Sunoos. And it goes very deeply both ways. One more quick story about that is I looked at my bank account one day, and there was $13,000 there, and all it said was Germany. So I called up one of my German brothers, Chardo, and I said, Chardo, what's going on? You know, this says, do you know anything about this? And he kind of laughed. He said, yeah, you know, your German mother sold her house, and she gave us, all of us, her inheritance early. But she says it's better to give things from warm hands than from cold. And that's your share. So I was crying. I thought, geez, that's so sweet. And I never expected that. Just the symbolism of it was just touching. So, and like this brother here, Chardo's also like that. You know, he's like, oh, stop your blubbering. You know, he said, what's the big difference? We divided up 12 ways or 13 ways, only $1,000 a piece. So, but this is the kind of relationship you can have when you have this deep contact with people and you care about each other and you show. And so the two main outcomes resulting from this one-year exchange 52 years ago was one, because of that initial first year of contact in 1962, two families built trust and love and joined into a lifelong relationship. You know, I can never think of Germany or its people as only the enemy or as a bunch of Nazis or as a bunch of Krauts. I always think of the family and the people that I know. And that, when I think about that, and like Cookie was saying earlier, that happens whenever people have intimate contact with each other. It happened to us, San Franciscan Californians coming out to Missouri. Every time we see somebody who's from Missouri, it's like, hey, brother, just like that. Where are you from? Oh, we went to Central. You know, we lived in Fayette for a while. I graduated from the zoo. It's just these kinds of things. We can never think of Missouri folk as anything else but kind of special to us. And I think, you know, when I was talking about Ferguson, I was kind of reflecting on that and saying, you know, something like that needs to happen in Ferguson. There needs to be a deeper communication. There needs to be a contact, a people-to-people contact with each other to prevent these great divides from separating us. And if that had happened, if people were invested in each other's lives and knew each other's faces, this wouldn't happen. The second thing that happened to me that I think was a good lesson out of this exchange student program in Germany was because I was having to constantly figure out what was going on in this very strange and different family dynamic. It gave me an unintended training as a mediator and cross-cultural scholar. And these skills, I would say there were skills that I developed, have helped me in every single job I've had and in my life. From being a Teamster union representative, from being on the LA Human Relations Commissioner, I was a federal mediator for a long time, and then working as an international expert for the UN in Vietnam for 6.5 years. But it all kind of goes back to these skills that accumulate when you are put in a situation that challenges you to think beyond the box and to think outside the box. So I think there are some very key benefits from global exchange. I think it greatly enlarges our capacity for understanding and tolerance for differences and ambiguity. One of the things we learned is that you just don't know all the answers. my brothers and sisters in Germany were acting up. I just could not figure out what was going on. When I was sitting in Vietnam trying to get a grant passed through the government, and it was like something dropped into a black hole and I could never figure it out. So you have to kind of learn to live with a certain amount of ambiguity. You know, and I think all of you who are like, how many freshmen are here? Any freshmen? Oh, good hand. So all of you were freshmen when you first came to Central. You didn't know all the answers. You didn't know where things were. You didn't know how to get things done. You didn't know how to register so well. So you have to live and just accept a certain amount of ambiguity in your lives until things start to fall into place. And so this is a good lesson. You know, it's something that helps you. It gives us a very usable skill set that can translate into and enhance our human relations skills in business, in academics, and in social life. So it's, when you think about it, when I think about my global exchange experience, it gave me a very valuable set of tools, human relations tools. And when you think about it, less than 18% of the U.S. population ever gets overseas beyond Mexico or Canada. So if you are one of those less, small percentage of people who has that experience of skill working or having experience overseas, in chapel today, Molly was talking about a trip to Haiti for 12 students to put water filters. Well, I hope some of you are among that group, because I think that kind of experience, even a short trip, it just really broadens your experiences, but it gives you skills as well. It gives you skills that are very valuable that you'll need. My brother joined the Peace Corps after graduating from Central, and that experience impacted his whole life. So there's many opportunities. I encourage you to talk to him about it if you get the chance, or if you're interested in that. My granddaughter wants to join the Peace Corps. She's 21. And we're thrilled about that, because we know that that's going to impact her life. It's going to broaden her perspective on the world, and it's going to change her. And it's never too late to engage in life experiences and build skills. The Peace Corps accepts retirees. They want retirees who have all that skill but aren't using it, to use it and to help other people. When I went to Vietnam, I was no youngster. I was 59. And that experience living abroad, it emboldened me to where now we even have a house in Korea. We're willing to live part-time in Asia. So I really encourage you to do that. And actually, in a handout that you have in your laps, there are a set of websites that I encourage you to look at. Just take 15 minutes to look at those websites, to see what kind of wonderful experiences there are available for young people internationally. Everything from 2-week programs to 1-year programs. Linking, so I think, if I think about, what I was doing, and I mentioned earlier about linking your gifts to your passion, I didn't know. I mean, for me, linking my gifts to my passion with work was not always a conscious plan. It was more a matter of luck and intuition and making the right choices at the right time. But one thing I know is I never followed the money. I always followed the love of what I wanted to do, or what I thought I should be doing that I thought would satisfy my soul. And over time, I gradually learned that my gift and passion were trying to bring harmony between people. And I was lucky enough to be raised by a supportive bicultural Korean American family. I was lucky to end up with a warm, special family in Germany. I was fortunate that Cook recommended me to be on the Human Relations Commissioner because he knew the mayor, Tom Bradley. I had a lot of good luck in my life, but I also made a lot of decisions. I mean, I wanted to go to Germany, so I made that decision and I worked hard for it. When I ran across this job in Vietnam to work as a development specialist in Vietnam, I just knew it was going to fit me. I knew it was something I wanted to do, something I'd be good at, so I went for it. And so, in terms of the exchange student family program in Ferguson, Missouri, I really believe there's hope for the residents of Ferguson and other towns like it across our country. There's hope because everybody recognizes that there's a serious disconnect there. And there are so many people on both sides of the situation who understand that it can only be fixed by real and sustained relationship building. There's hope because enough people want to do the right thing. So I'm not worried. I don't worry so much about that anymore. I think that it's made its point. The good people who really want to make that change are going to make the change, because it is my philosophy that the human being is basically good and they want to do the right thing. But the corollary to that is that it is up to us peacemakers, us peace builders, to provide those opportunities for people to do the right thing. If you're a child soldier in Africa, you don't have much choice about doing what you can do, because your parents have been killed and the only one you can look up to is this soldier figure. But if people have the right opportunity, I believe they will do the right thing. They want to do the right thing. And I'm confident about that. Because having experienced living with my family in Germany, practicing mediation for over 20 years, working in Vietnam and in Bangkok, it has taught me that there is no substitute for face-to-face relationship building. And relationships work when each side has something involved with it. But what about you? What's your next step? How do you discover your gifts? How do you recognize your passions? And where do your gifts and your passions intersect with the needs in the world? I'd like to finish up this first session here, with an appreciative inquiry interview. It's a technique I use to peace builders in the Rotary Peace Center in Bangkok. And it helps groups and individuals think positively about the future and about themselves by recalling success experiences. So instead of focusing on analyzing what's wrong with the situation or the problem or what's lacking, this process helps you to recall things that have worked in the past and to try to do more of it. And it empowers people to think more optimistically what they can do as opposed to what they can't. So if I'm going to give you some instructions, what I'd like you to do, this will not take more than about 10 minutes. Okay. What I'd like you to do is take out these little cards that you have in your program and flip it to the side that says, imagine yourself as a peace builder. And what I want you to do is just take 5 minutes to interview the person you're sitting next to and ask them this question. What do you consider to be your best personal strengths or your gifts? What would your parents or what would your best friends tell you? Like, what's your name? Elisa. Okay, so Elisa, I'd say, I'm going to interview you. I'd say, you don't have to give the answer out loud. Okay, so think about it for a moment. What do you consider to be your best personal strengths, your gifts? And what's your name? And Hannah's going to ask you that. And then the second question Hannah's going to ask you is, what social issues do you feel most passionate about? Is it ecology? Is it, school, education? Is it war? Is it the military complex? Is it the 10% that control the politicians? Job opportunities? What is it? The last question, and then you can ask her the same 2 questions. Okay? So then the third question is, what activities could you possibly do? Just briefly, just brainstorm for a few minutes on an individual or on a group level. What activities that links your strengths with your passions? What activity could you do? It could be anything small. It could be like passing a petition. It could be like watching more videos on ecology or on world hunger. It could be getting involved with the. Could be getting involved here at Central with the faith and service folks. Bonnie's great department. So I'd like each of you to pick a partner, the person you're sitting next to, and we'll take 5 minutes to interview one way, and then I'll give you call time, and then you interview the other way. Okay? Can we do that? Okay. Pick a partner. Again. All right. Of course, I can't ask for feedback from all the interviews we had here. How many of you have done this before? Have thought about your special gifts or what it is that your strengths are, that kind of thing? Have you ever done that kind of self-analysis before? Some of you have, I'm sure. And I think, when you're in college, it's a great time because you have a chance to think and plan what you're going to do next. You don't go to a job every day. Well, some of you are, but most of you aren't. And it's a good time to reflect and to think about how you want to make some important decisions. I'd like to see by show of hands. It seemed to me that some of you, I heard somebody have been. How many of you have ever been involved with some kind of a service project? Let's just kind of show of hands. Wow, that is great. And how many of you have thought? How many of you have been involved in any international projects? Any? That is a very high number. How many of you are thinking about getting involved with some international projects? Oh, that's great. It's so encouraging. Well, maybe I'm just preaching to the choir here. I do want to encourage you not only to think of a mission, but in some of you who have that special appetite for it, to think about it as a career, to think about working overseas. Like I said, I didn't do it till I was 59, and it just opened up so many new things for me. It gave me a lot more confidence. Even at that age, and when most people think about retirement, it gave me confidence about so many more things that I could do with my life. And it just was such an invigorating thing. So I hope that you do take a look at some of those websites, because it's not just Peace Corps, but it's also there's one website that shows all the different possibilities. Some of you may become Rotary fellows, go overseas with the Rotary programs. Just anything, it's almost like a niche for anybody with any type of skill who wants to do something. If you've got the heart in the right place and you want to do something good, you'll find something. I'm sure you'll be able to find something. I think you are all peacemakers, peace builders, whether it's happening here in the U.S. or whether it's happening abroad or whether it's both. You're all peace builders. You can make it happen. I feel so much encouraged by your responses and by you all being here. And I will admonish you to go forth and make peace. And before I release you, there is just one thing I want to say, and that's the one thing the president wants to say. So I'm not going to release anybody. Roger is going to release you. But what I do want to say is this, and this is really more concerning our family. Cookie talked about Dad being a refugee and coming to this country, coming to Central. He spent a third of his life here. He died when he was 97. He spent about 35 years here. That's a third of his life. And I have to say, I believe these were the happiest years of his life. Probably the most productive, the most rewarding for him. Probably he felt the most respected, the most loved here. Both from his colleagues, and from the students. So I just want to say one more time, thank you for that. Thank you.
Great evening, and before we go, students, I want to take just a second to personally thank you for coming out tonight. It was a very meaningful talk, a very important subject. Thank you so much for being here when Jans was shocked at the number of hands that went up when he asked how many people might have plans to do something international, something to do with world peace. I would not have been shocked if every hand went up. every generation before me, and especially those immediately before me, said the next generation was going to be the ruination of life as we know it. We have all said that. I defend you. I defend your generation every chance I get. Because what is really important to this world is what is important to you folks. All that my generation cared about is that we made more money and did better financially than our parents. When I ask students in the dining center and students that I meet on campus or students in the leadership class that I teach from time to time, what's important to you? It's sustainability, it's the ecology, it's giving back, it's a life of service, it's service above self. You folks are going to leave this place a lot better off than we are leaving it to you. Right before we leave, I would like for Jan and Cook to stand for a second. I want to kind of show you who all came out to hear you speak tonight. Would the trustees of Central Methodist University please stand?
Hey, can I take a picture?
Yes. Can you believe that, folks? This many trustees come out, some from as far as St. Louis. Okay, thank you, guys. What about non-students, members of the local community that are not trustees? Would you guys please stand? Thank you so much. Faculty and staff of Central Methodist University. Now, the most important group here, CMU students. Thank you folks for coming out. I appreciate it so much. Have a great night.